one of the things I love about the core suite of the tools that we teach is that you don't have to do the suffering. You don't have to do the catharsis. You can become the best version of yourself, which, as it was told to me, and it still settles me when I'm having a hard day. The best version of you was already written. You don't need to know what it is. You don't even need to know where you're going. You just need to make the best decision in the moment that's going to align with that, and the rest will take care of itself.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good day. This is Conor and Kallum with the Unplugged Podcast number 39. And today we are over the moon because we have a global leader in the field. We have Dr. Kim Redman, who is joining us, zooming in all the way from Canada. Welcome to the Connekt Unplugged number 39, and I'll let Kallum share with the world a little bit more about you.
Thanks, Conor. Dr. Kim Redman is a visionary, a leader, and a CEO of Creatrix GoQuantum and the founder of GoQuantum University. She's an alchemist, a keynote speaker, and a multiple-time #1 international best-selling author. As North America's top board master trainer of hypnosis and NLP, she also serves on the ABH and the AB-NLP Council of Ethics and Standards. Dr. Kim has been nominated for Canada's top 100 most powerful women and North America's Compassionate Leaders Award, supported by Forbes. Her work is also about blending science and spirit, using consciousness as a technology to create powerful shifts in mindset, behavior, and success strategies. She is a global leader in quantum consciousness and a founder of Quantum Leadership, helping people expand their potential in ways never imagined. With over 40 years of study in mystery schools and ancient wisdom, she brings a unique mix of quantum physics, neurobiology, and quantum mechanics biology into a practical, hands-on tool for transformation. Dr. Kim is where East meets West for quantum success, and whether she's on stage or in conversation, she's a powerhouse of fun, energy, and education. Get ready for an insightful, high-energy conversation with Dr. Kim today. Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Wow, thanks, guys. That was amazing.
Well, you're amazing. We had a private chat with you a couple of months ago, and Conor is in touch with you all of the time, but it was, I think, the very first time that you and I directly had a conversation, and immediately I was like, oh, I love you and everything that you do. Because for me, the connection that you make between science, psychology, and spirituality is at the forefront of what you do. And you're a real trailblazer in the industry because you're breaking into this taboo topic of bringing spirituality into business and bringing spirituality into corporate trainings. And I'm fascinated by anyone brave enough to do that. And I think that you do it quite exquisitely. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that started and where the idea, or where you started to feel comfortable with, I guess, stepping out and sharing your insights around these ideas?
Yeah, fair enough. And I love that you added a tag question of comfortable, because there are times I'm still not sure that I'm comfortable. And it actually started on the other side of my brain, so to speak. So I started in psychology. I toured professionally in theater. I was with developmental psychology, and then I started my mystical training. So it was all very kind of right-brained for me. And I decided years later, once I began the hypnosis and the NLP path, that I was going to go for my PhD. And it was one of those moments where, when you hit a wall and there's nothing you can do around the wall. And I had another 100 pages on my thesis due in like 3 days to submit. And I was having a meltdown, to be really honest with you. I was like, what did I get myself into? And I had all the books, with the tabs in the books, and they're all around.
Were they colored tabs?
Of course they were. It's me, my visual. So absolutely colored tabs, but nothing was numbered. And I went to reach for something, and a book fell over, and the whole thing cascaded onto the floor. all the work, all the papers, all the books. I had my head between my knees, taking this horrible gasp, tears running down my face. And when I sat up, I had 3 books left in my lap. And one of them was the ancient Kabbalah, because I am a 40-year initiate into high mystical studies and mystery schools. One was my work in leadership, and one was this trial study that I wanted to put in my PhD about behavior. And all of a sudden, this light went off in my head that the ancients had already documented all of this. Yeah. The core competencies, the skill sets, the behaviors that you had to have in your neurology. And that opened up quantum leadership. I had no idea I opened up a new field globally. I mean, they told me that when I was defending my thesis, and I was like, shut the front door. And, me being me, then we knew in NLP at the mastery level that we could guarantee our results in writing, but we didn't really know how. And then I met Dr. Amy Banks, who's the head of psychiatry and research at Harvard University. She was on a book tour for the 4 Ways to Click. See, the universe has a plan. It has a plan. And they knew how, or I should say, what happened in the brain when we had these limiting decisions and behaviors and traumas, but they didn't know how to shift it. We knew how to shift it, but we didn't know what was going on. And that plunged me into neuroscience and really becoming fond advocates of work with Greg Braden and of epigenetics. And then I took a neuroscience degree because I got bored during COVID.
As you do.
And it just kind of went, so now I can, with great authority, say, I can speak to you in woo-woo, or I can speak to you in neuroscience. And it's the exact same stuff. So really, it's just about the fact that our technology is beginning now to get to a high enough frequency that it can measure the things the ancients already knew. They just called it different stuff.
And when you talk about the ancients knowing this stuff, I know we're diving quite deep quite quickly, but I am fascinated by this. When you talk about the ancients documenting this stuff, and when you talk about the technology now becoming a high enough frequency to measure the frequencies that the ancients always knew were there, do you think that the technologies at the time were sufficiently advanced like ours, but just went into a different direction? Or do you think that they were picking up on things more intuitively? How do you think that they came to know these amazing things?
That's a really great question. And I certainly don't have an answer, although I have suspicions of answers. I think in the traditions where we were able to have a more direct conversation, that there were a lot of how to pass down conversationally. I presume, and my research has indicated, that their technologies were more right-brained. And by right-brained, I mean things like, well, let me give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples. In 2007, in dailyscience.com, which is a free site you can go to that gives the headlines in all the different science areas all over the world that day.
That website, Daily?
ScienceDaily.com.
Okay.
ScienceDaily.com. And in the ancient wisdoms, it is taught that in addition to the 2 strands of DNA that we have 5 higher bodies that are well documented that cross dimensions, and each of those has 2 strands of DNA that were called shadow strands in all the ancient descriptions.
Shadow strands.
Shadow strands. In 2007, on the ScienceDaily.com site, they announced in genetics that they had found 10 shadow strands of DNA. They had no idea what they did or They just knew that they were in a different frequency, and my inbox just blew up. All the initiates going, we know what they're for. We know what they're for.
You're unpacking a lot. Do you mind if I ask you to unpack it? Because there's a lot of presuppositions, and in what you just mentioned is probably drop mic material. Can you, for the person who's not trained in this field, what does that mean? What's the significance of this?
As the actual literal frequency, the Hertz frequency on the planet, and some call it the Schumann resonance. But there's a Hertz frequency. Everything's frequency. Our cells, certain viruses, everything on the planet has a frequency. And it is said when our frequency literally increases, that we begin to have access to what some would call higher self in a very physical way. So the way it's always storied in the ancient wisdom schools is to think of the Cirque du Soleil. Has anyone ever seen the silks?
Love Cirque du Soleil,
They drop the silks down. That there are 12 silks, and 2 of them are all the way down to the floor in the lower 3D world. That's our current DNA. And the other 10 are in various states of dropping. And when they begin to drop, we exhibit the ability to have greater synchronicity in our life, to be able to get those flashes of insights, to be able to...
Intuition? Would intuition be part of this?
It sure would. Intuition, sacred geometry, the ability to start to pick up aspects of all of the behaviors that are universal for everybody's master teachers who came to the planet. That was so...
This is incredible. This is like a masterclass. And what is higher self? And what is it? You mentioned energy.
The geometries, sacred geometries.
So what is higher self and what is sacred geometry?
Well, it is said no matter what paradigm you're in, that
what's a paradigm?
Oh boy, we're going. In groupings of understanding around the world,
okay,
that there are 3 selves. An unconscious self, a conscious self, a higher self. If I was coming out of psychology, it would be id, ego, and superego. If I was coming out of a more shamanistic training, it would be the lower world self, this world self, and the upper world self. And what I love is the universality of this. And I think that's one of the things I want to get across to your viewers. This isn't about religion. This is about the universality of all of the ancient teachings. So when I see the same message in 5 different cultures, I go...
There's a connection.
Like, hey, maybe I should pay attention to this. So understanding that people have different languaging or nomenclature around what is higher self. You could call it your higher self. You could call it your spirit soul self for people that are scientific. You could just call it the aspect of yourself that is plugged into the higher dimensions in our multi-dimensional world.
Okay.
So however you describe it, same thing.
Uh-huh.
And when we talk about the inverted iceberg, that down here in the 3D world, anyone that's seen any of our classes, we always include this astrophysics slide that talks about in the universe, how much of the universe do we think of is real and how much of it is, dark matter and dark energy, and dark not because it's bad, just because they can't see it. They can see the impact of it. And really in the lower 3D world, we're working with 4% of the information. And these packets of quanta, which are little packets of information, are streaming to us continuously. And our conscious mind is not the mind that's designed to do that. and to add into your what is geometry or sacred geometry. Before we had words, we had symbols. And therefore, as an example, one of the ones that you see on the side of pyramids and you see on the walls in Israel and all the places is the overlapping wedding rings, the two circles. And in the middle of the two circles is this oblong shape where they cross, and that's called the Vesica Piscis. And if I put the little tail at the bottom, it's the Christian fish.
Yes.
But if I add in 5 more circles, all overlapping in a circle, now I have the seed of life. And this is why they say the 5 people you hang out with have the most impact on your frequency and your life. It's 5 plus you and the upper dimensions, or divine, if you would tend to call it that.
This is so early on in the conversation.
Right. So here's the thing I want to give you. This ties into your brain.
Okay.
And this is where I just went, that is so cool. And then again, I'm a geek. I'm a big science geek. And this is where these same shapes or geometries are also in our bodies. So when we begin conception, we actually start in the seed of life and it grows into the flower of life. In our brains, we have this triad of glands, the pituitary gland, pineal gland, which is a little antenna, and the hypothalamus that sits like an egg inside of the thalamus at the top, and it's light sensitive. And science couldn't figure out why, because it's not lower light sensitive, it's light, big L, sensitive. And they've done studies with monks since the 60s that when you do certain exercises, there's an alignment of those glands. And at that time, neurotransmitters are produced that allow for upper enlightenment and intuition and information that happen at no other time. And the pineal gland, just to do one more science geeky thing, looks like a pine cone.
Yes.
And if you begin to look, you can see it everywhere. It's on the Pope's staff. But there are no pine trees at the Vatican. I've been. And they explain this. In all of the sacred teachings, you'll find pine cones mapped onto things because they all knew that the goal was to extend the antenna coming out of the pineal gland. So when you get down to it, this is really now science. We're just using different words to talk about the same things.
So I'm very much a why person. You said lengthening the what of the pineal gland?
There's a little antenna. It's about the size of a grain of rice. And it's supposed to be kind of going up, and it's lazy. It sort of sits on its side. And the why. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah. Yes.
Why did the monks do this? Why do all of the top people with consciousness in the world study this? Why do some of the ancient wisdoms come forward? Because it allows you to manifest your potential, make your greatest impact possible on the planet, and receive information that changes your life and gives you access to potentiality that while it's inside of us, we can't access it yet.
So if I'm piecing all the puzzles together, the enlightenment, the work, regardless of what or how, whether it's monk, religion, whatever it is, they may not be conscious of what they're doing, but in essence, what they're trying to do is get their little antenna to stand up straight. And the more it can stand up straight, the more in tune you are with the universe, the divine, and the more you can influence it based on your focus.
Not only can you influence outside, but you influence inside. How would you like to live longer and healthier? How would you like to look 20 years younger than you are? Recover faster? from things. And I'll give you an example. We recently moved into our dream home, and a few months ago, I was in a new kitchen. I successfully pulled the 450-degree pot out of the oven. The people were speaking to me, and in total lack of consciousness, I touched the handle, and I wound up with third-degree burns. This is what my hand looked like 2 days later. It never peeled. It never blistered. And you better believe I was using the tools continually. You have crystalline nature in your bloodstream. You have crystalline access and in some of your organs. So basically, think of us as asleep. As a matter of fact, it says that in the mystery schools, that we are floating face down in the river of forgetfulness, and we're supposed to flip them over and wake them up to become the divine aspect of themselves that changes humanity. And that's a big
If
deal.
everyone was awake, if everyone was flipped, what world would we have?
Peace. We would have a sharing of resources. And as one of the masters said, and he made me laugh, before enlightenment, I cook rice, I sit on my mat, I meditate. After enlightenment, I cook rice, I sit on my mat, I meditate. He said, but my bottom heals faster. So whether it's aligning your services to your passion and why you're on the planet. And I think that's an important piece. I believe, and my team and our grads, if you're in my world, you believe you're here for a purpose. And that purpose was to do good by doing good. Like, however you did that. It just so happens that a lot of people that are in our circle are conscious entrepreneurs, they're coaches, they're teachers, they're people in the community that really want to make an impact. And that's for us. And Kallum, whatever you just did, if you could pull that mic back, we're getting feedback all of a sudden. What? Okay. So we will just keep going.
Can you hear it?
So at what point
Oh, no, it is.
in your life, I mean, were you always the curious kid who would imagine, if I wasn't looking over there, does that exist type of thing?
Yeah, that's not kind of how I went on the path, though. I was the curious kid.
Yeah.
I had experiences when I was younger that I knew I really couldn't speak about because it made the adults very uncomfortable. So as an example of that, I would be sleeping down the hall in the new bedroom my parents made for us in the Bronx, New York, tiny little place, but I felt like I was miles away from them and nervous. And all of a sudden, I would be on the ceiling of my room, looking down at me in the bed and following the path. And inevitably, something shiny would catch my attention. See, it's not any different. And I'd wind up in a bad spot. And I would call her the Lady of Light, would come get me and go, we talked about staying on the path, Kimmy. I'm like, I know. And we'd sit on the ceiling of my room and we'd talk all night, and I would learn things that I would have confirmed the next day that, in fact, I learned. And I did my best to hide that part of me. I want to be really clear. This was not comfortable. And I was
talking what age? You said little girl, so we're like 7, 8, 9? Okay,
5.
Okay.
Just 5. And I was able to sort of suppress it until my cycle started as a young woman. And then I was able to sort of suppress it again, except I was in a family environment that had a lot of physical abuse in it. And at my 18th birthday, just before my 18th birthday, I actually was strangled and I flatlined and I died. And I went to the other side, and there was such love. I was watching what was going down below me with my attacker. I was filled with such love, I actually thought that I would explode if I was in a physical form. And just as this being of light reached out a hand, I looked back and I said, but if I go, I don't do what I came here to do. And part of me is going, what are you talking about? Like, I'm 18. And I was
Pretty deep for an
instantly back
18-year-old.
in my body. And from that point, I could not shut any of my abilities off. And I went through a series of, I got cancer and transmuted it while I was working with the shamans. That's the thing that actually pushed me to study. I had cancer and transmuted it. I broke C2 and it's fine. I've been in more medical papers than I care to admit. It took me 6 months once to relearn how to walk. And the shamans finally said to me, you have to stop breaking your body just to prove that this is plastic. You have to find a better way of doing this.
Yeah.
And it led me to become, I guess, on the quest of learning why these two worlds were here. I was working with at-risk kids. I was seeing the impacts of those traumas, and I knew how to transmute some of it. But really, the ultimate driving force, Conor, wasn't consciousness. It certainly wasn't enlightenment. It was functionality and to begin to help the kids I was working with. And that's what drove me into developmental psych and then into hypnosis and into NLP.
Yes.
And when my own PTSD spontaneously remissed during Master Prac, I went, I'm in. And what I later found out in my PhD is the NLP skills are how we teach the core competencies and skill sets that the ancients needed. So I can awaken these skill sets and competencies and behaviors and cool stuff in 18 months rather than 10 years on the ancient path. And the rest of it was, just one foot in front of the other. But I never thought I was going to be here doing this.
Is an incredible journey, and I would imagine, and this is a mind read. I'm assuming you didn't have it all mapped out in front of you. You just went, that looks cool. Oh, this is where my intuition is taking me next, and it was guided by you, but through some sort of
higher
curiosity, higher intelligence.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
and definite curiosity. And a lot of it along the way, we're all human. I remember being in a cave with the shaman and sobbing my heart out, face down on the floor of the cave. And I finally rolled over with great trauma. Went, why is this so hard? And he went, well, at least you're looking in the right direction now. Yeah. I'm like, I hate you. In this moment, I hate you. And one of the things I love about the core suite of the tools that we teach is that you don't have to do the suffering. You don't have to do the catharsis. You can become the best version of yourself, which, as it was told to me, and it still settles me when I'm having a hard day. The best version of you was already written. You don't need to know what it is. You don't even need to know where you're going. You just need to make the best decision in the moment that's going to align with that, and the rest will take care of itself.
I've often, Cal, do you have a question? Otherwise, I'll...
No, keep going.
I have the best decision in that moment. That is so open for interpretation. So if someone has been indoctrinated into a belief system growing up, but as they grow, they're not clear on if they follow it or not, but they know that there's something else, but they're not too sure what that something else is. how would someone make that right decision when they're in conflict?
Great question. One of the things that we do, and I answer a lot of those out of either indigenous teachings because no one seems to be upset with them, or out of leadership teachings. Because again, it's a nice, neutral, play in the sandbox kind of place. And we give this actually as one of the gifts at our Designing Your Destiny, that introductory weekend that we do with the six secrets and the 6 gifts. This is one of them. And we teach people how to decision make from strategic to tactical. And it sounds really simple. It goes like this. If you need to make a decision, is what's in front of you going to bring you closer to a goal or the better version of yourself, or further? And what I love about this Venn diagram is it cuts out all of the spinning of the, oh, that's shiny, that might work, this might work. So right there, you've got a yes, no. If you get a closer or a yes, this is going to get us closer, then the only question you are allowed to ask, and this is straight out of leadership and military leadership, is how can I? Not why you can't, how can I? So you run the neurology of possibilities. And it sounds like this. I could ask for someone to watch the kids. I can ask for the time off from work. I could use a credit card. But the point is, it's really concrete information. And then what step can I do right now? And the reason you want to do a step right now is the reticular activation system of our brains, the RAS, is that consciousness filter that tells us, based on our past programming, what's available to us and what's not. So it's not what's out there in the universe, but what's available to us. And as soon as we take an emotion-charged action,
Is that important? Emotion-charged action?
It really is. Even if it's not, oh my God, the kids called it nervous-sighted. I'm nervous and excited at the same time. I'm nervous-sighted. Emotion wakes up the RAS and tells it to pay attention. So let's say, as just an example for the coaches out there, we say, have someone put a deposit down, because that assists them in holding space and supporting the decision their RAS makes. And just, that's enough to just get the weight off of us for a little bit.
Absolutely. In one of the, I think it was the NLP Trainers Training Manual, there's a study in the back, and the study was, when someone commits financially to something, the success rate in their mind of how successful they will be skyrockets.
Yes.
So they could be sitting at I'm 40% certain I'll be successful doing this. As soon as they place money down, their certainty goes up to the 80 to 100% certainty, purely by that action, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. So,
and then the law of attraction will then say, which most people use wrongly, the law of attraction will just say, hey, you did something new. We're going to attract more of that new thing you just did, which further supports. Sorry, I jumped in there.
No, that's good. It all adds to it. I think you brought up another concept, which is the law of attraction. The presupposition of, is this the right decision? Will it get me to where I want to go? The presupposition of all of this is that I have some concept of where I want to go.
Right. They did an interview with Oprah where she did a meta study of the top 100, I think it was, top successful people that she's ever interviewed. And, she's interviewed a few.
Yes.
And they said, what was the number one thing that you noticed that you would bring forward? And she said the people that were the most successful actually had a goal and knew some of the steps on how to get there. It wasn't a wish. And I went, and they took action on it.
Hey guys, Kallum and Conor here from Connekt Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged Podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely. What we love doing is lighting people up and helping them realize that their future is bright and, most importantly, making a difference in this world. So we are very excited to be able to share this with you.
If you want to turn every prospect into a Forever Client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.
And that's in our intro weekend too. Like, we want people to get to their goals.
I think most people in society have that. They have a goal where they want to go. They have 3 out of the 10 steps in their mind if they were to break it down into 10 steps. But what is it in your teaching and what you teach? What is it that stops people from taking that first step forward? Making them sit on it, Yeah.
A few things. Okay, the number one thing, I'm going to go back to science for a moment, is the RAS is experienced.
RAS is the reticular activator system, which is basically your conscious mind scanning all the time, looking for a match with what's going on inside here.
Right. So your brain doesn't see the world the way you are growing into, and it doesn't see the world the way it is. It sees the way that you are in the past. So the brain is lazy. So it attempts.
I knew it was.
It is. I validate that. It is lazy. And so it wants to attempt to take these new ideas and put them through old filters. And the other thing that's so important is what's oldest runs first, not what's best. So I came from poverty. So I had a total either absentia of how to have wealth happen in my life or an open fear of it. So number one is we've got to clean up the programs. Most of us are trying to live a new life with programs, to be blunt. So forgive me to your listeners, that we're working with programs that we put in when we're 7, 8, and 9 years old. And so there's nothing wrong with them. They make up a story. That's human. And I'm here to tell all of your listeners there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't have...
Metaphorically, is it like trying to use the computer programs of today on a computer that was built 30 years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, we clean up our apps all the time and our operating systems on our phones, on our iPads, but we gotta have to do this one. So that's the first, because when the program's in, it's much easier to grow neurology in that direction, number one. Number two, I'll say they don't actually have a goal. They have a wish. Because if they had a goal, it would have a timetable. It would be specific. It would be measurable for them. And they would have an idea of how to apply resources to it so it worked. Most people are standing on a manicured lawn wanting to find the path through the woods. And, you've got to get into the woods to find the path through the woods.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is, when I understand it, then I'll do it. From a brain perspective, a neurology perspective.
Is that the if then?
Yeah, that's the if then. It's backwards, because you can't do it waiting to understand it, because if you don't do it, you'll never understand it. It happens in the reverse order. So they've got the sequence wrong. You've got to take a step to have an understanding. You can't have an understanding before you take a step. It's actually backwards in neurology. And this isn't going to give. It's going to win every single time. So you got to work the system as the system is wired. So I think they call it fear, and I challenge that. I think after working with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, it's not really a fear. It's an abstract hallucination. They're running a movie in their head that says, I'm already tired, so if I get more, I'm going to be more tired. Or I already think half my friends are making me crazy and I may need to drop them. And if I got more people in my life, I'd only be more overwhelmed. So they're running this hallucinatory movie in their head that moving forward is harder than where they're at. And, Tony Robbins says it all the time. The most successful life is the most resourced life. So it's about actually finding what you want and making a plan. And I don't want to diminish that people are challenged. I think it's really important that we stay out of judgment here. I want to stay out of the, you don't understand. You're right, I may not. But I do know that where there is a will, there is a way. I came out of poverty. I have worked with other people who came out of poverty. I have had single moms with 2 kids on assistance give me 50 post-dated checks on a sliding scale to come through the program, because I think you need to get fed up enough where you go, I don't even care anymore what's next, but I'm done with this. I'm over it. And when you get to that place, doors open. But if you're comfortably miserable.
The dog on the nail, right?
Yes. So people get to decide how hard it has to be. And we're here to say, we're here. You can reach out. People reach out on email. I answer them. They reach out on social media. I answer them. You guys are amazing on your social media. Like, there are resources. And, if you can't do a professional program, I bet there's a $20 program. I mean, we're giving a QR code here for almost $1,200 versus a gift. Cool. Just if people listen and download the podcast for you, there's always a way. I don't know. Was that too rah-rah?
No, that's good.
That's what people need. I mean, I love that. Cal and I live by this as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cal.
It's about, I think, the decision.
Yeah, it absolutely is a decision. And I like what you said about you have to get to a point where you have to be like, that's it, draw a line in the sand. Because I think back to every pivotal moment in my life, it happened that way. It was, I finally got fed up. You think things are never going to change. You think that this is just the way it's always going to be. And then something happens, something pushes you over the edge and you're like, that's it. I'm absolutely fed up with that. And what I'm noticing at the moment, because there is so much change occurring at the moment, it has been for the past 5 years.
Yes.
And, people feel like in a lot of ways from anyway, my read, feel like in a lot of ways that the earth is still moving beneath their feet. That they're not, not necessarily on solid ground. And it's almost, and I feel like we're coming out of it now, but it almost feels like there's a lot of people that have been putting up with the way things are and waiting, I guess, for some external factors or external person to fix things and to essentially be their savior. And I think one of the most important things that someone said on my personal development journey, although it was harsh to hear at the time, was, Kallum, nobody's coming to save you. There's literally no one coming. There's no Superman, no Superwoman. It's all on you, mate. And
you need,
know, and it was,
your own hero.
I just lost my father at quite a young age. I was in a serious relationship that broke down, and it was like, it was a big whack in the face. But it was more than that, because it was when I built up the courage and the I guess the resilience and the grit to say that is, I'm done with that. I'm done with that old life. I'm fed up with it. It's not going to be that way anymore. And I feel like the importance of the work that you do and the work that, a lot of people in our community do is that they're giving people the know-how of how to walk themselves across that line into their new life. Because a lot of people just don't know what to do. They just don't know the steps. And I think this is what I also love about what you're doing with science and spirituality, is that it's not this abstract, ambiguous, woo-woo type stuff. There is tangible steps and processes that people can take And then you're
Yes.
linking it back to the way that the brain works and the way that the mind works, and even people's environments that they're in affect them and establish them. And you talked about, epigenetics and Bruce Lipton before, and that's a wonderful book that people should read. Do you think, I mean, is there, and you talked about a couple of steps and more broadly, a lot of different concepts, but is there some really basic, simple things that people can do when they are fed up? Because I feel like people are waiting to press the go
Yes.
button. They want the go button. But they still are kind of hesitating because they don't know the right next step. And you talked about how important that was to manifest that thing into reality. So is there something really specific and practical that people can do if they're at that spot in their life?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to tag on to, I love one of the words you said. The word was courage, because the definition of courage is to take action in the face of your fear, not fearlessness.
Correct.
And if we're going to get off of victim island and get, over to Solution City, we got to get in the boat. Now, I'm all for waiting until it's calmer seas before you get in the boat, or at least, not a tidal wave. And if you're going to do that, learn how to surf. But you need some courage. And your comment made me think I think it was 2021, I spoke to over 124,000 people on how to create certainty in uncertain times. And it got us to the place where we came up with something called the quantum empowerment experience. And it was just the top 4 things that everyone agrees on: neuroscience, mindfulness, psychology, on what to do at the physical level, at the emotional level, at the mental level, and at the spiritual quantum level. And one of the fastest things that I can say for folks is stop. Stop. And STOP is an acronym. The S stands for stop. The T stands for take a breath. And Deepak Chopra says take 3 very deep breaths in and out. The O and the T also stands for not only take a breath, but time out. So go for a walk outside of your environment. Look, I'm living in Canada. I don't care if it's 10 minutes at the end of the driveway. I know it can be chilly. But get out of the environment and observe. Observe your own behavior, where you're throwing fuel on the fire. Observe where there may be possibilities. And when you see some possibilities, then you proceed. Because the first thing that I think really assists us is breaking that, hijack that goes on where the front of our brain shuts off. I mean, we have a limbic system and for our emotions, and we have an amygdala hijack, and it's part of our old brain. It kind of kept us alive when we were out hunting tigers, and it goes like this. It says, oh, look, that's new. Instead of going over to the orange fuzzy thing and going home as someone's dinner, you went, oh, let me observe and take a breath and go home with dinner. So since we can't unwire that, it's hardwired into us, we can learn to manage it. So I think the first step is to just take a chill pill, take the time out and come down off the cliff.
Could breathing bring someone? Yeah.
Deep breathing will work. One of my other breathing techniques that we give in that. So stop is number 1. The second thing would be the 4-6-8 breath. And because it shuts off the cortisol flooding through your system, which is attached to all the adrenaline. And it goes like this. You breathe in for 4, hold for 6, breathe out for 8, push. You do 2 of those, it's like having 2 glasses of wine.
I'll do 8.
I was wondering where the wine fits into all of this.
It had to happen. So I think if we can do the stop, if we can do the 4-6-8 breath, because it does shut off the adrenals and the cortisol that's pumping, it allows us to have a little grace with ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves.
Agreed.
I was saying to one of my mastermind groups yesterday, if you treated your clients the way you treated you, they'd bop you in the nose.
Very true.
Like, we're great with them.
As we're going through the STOP acronym, to map it across to, I guess, everyday life and business as a trainer, would you bring this into the corporate world? So, bridging that gap.
Absolutely. And
it's a bit out there to, what most would perceive conscious-minded, we need to make money here. We don't have time for anything that's not going to make us money. Breathing, how can breathing make us money? You bring that in, don't you? You
betcha I do.
And it's an essential part of the success that you bring to businesses.
And here's back to the science. There's just vitality. There's a cellular vitality that we can have. And the more of that we have, the better we are at business and being husbands and wives and moms and dads and friends and sisters and brothers. The more fuel we have in the tank. So for me, it's just a straight cross. The more fuel you have in the tank, the better the car's going to run. And the more places,
the better salesperson you'll be, the better entrepreneur you'll be, the better mother, father.
Right. So, if it's good enough for your kids to take time out, it's good enough for you. Take a little time out, go walk around the corporate building.
Take yourself to your room.
We haven't got to OMP yet, have we? Or are we still at T?
So the O would be the observe. Once you've come off the cliff, observe what your best options would be. Observe where you're throwing fuel on the fire, and maybe we have to pull that back and make yap. And then proceed with your best self's option. If I was going to kind of rank me at the end of the day on how well I did, if I was my own coach ranking me, we all know there's a low frequency option where we're like, oh yeah, and I can bring up the wrong. Or there's the
guilty,
step it back and take the high road option. And I think the challenge is, and I'll quote Michelle Obama here, when they go low, we go high. And that is a creatrix axiom here at Creatrix GoQuantum, because the high road will always win. Over the low road, it just takes a little longer. And, if you're looking for the sustainable win, then you want to take the high road. And I openly admit, I need my girlfriends around me, I need my husband around me to be sanity when I'm just in this rant. And I already know that big emotion impacts the universe. I mean, we just said that. I'm trained. So I want to be
still
out
human.
in the snow.
Yeah.
Still human.
Yeah.
Still human. Enlightenment. Cook rice. Sit on mat.
Yeah.
And therefore, I want to change that state in my body as fast as I can. And I'm going to do that physically. I'm going to do that with all the physical tools first, because it's in my body already. My body's already had cortisol and chemicals and adrenaline dumped into it. Let me go do what I can to straighten my physical body out. And then some of these emotional tools, like gratitude, which is also a spiritual tool. Let me name 3 things that actually happened that day. So you can't say your kids, if your kids are making you crazy that day. But as they wrap their chubby arms around you and you realize you remember why you had them, that's the gratitude moment, And we strongly say, write it down. Avoid just thinking about it. I don't care if it's on your phone, because it programs the RAS to look for these things when you have to write it down.
Well, that's
We had Dr. DeMartini on recently talking about gratitude and how powerful it is. I recently started reading a book by Rick Rubin, who a famous producer in the US. And, he talks all about gratitude and finding spaces in the day to be still And it was interesting what you were saying about the letter T, because, we started off this conversation talking about ancient wisdom. We've heard about Hakalau in the trainings. Hakalau is an ancient Hawaiian huna technique where you get into peripheral vision. So you expand your awareness out of the foveal. And most of us are stuck in foveal because we're staring at computer screens, or we're staring at mobile phones. But he talks about, getting into the Hakalau, the ancient Hawaiian huna tradition talks about getting into peripheral vision and allowing that awareness to expand all the way around you. And it was interesting recently because, I've always found that to work really well for me, even when I was riding my Harley Davidson through Sydney.
Especially
to be very effective in those situations. But recently, Andrew Huberman from Stanford University, he's a professor there. He's actually talking about the combination between Hakalau and the 4-6-8 breath that you were just talking about, being able to get you out of sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic nervous system. So there's so much now coming out where it's just like what was traditionally in the last probably 50 years classed as woo, actually being peer-reviewed study and science now that they're looking at. So
I love that.
Yeah, and there's so much of it, and like you said, it's readily available for everybody. Podcasts like this, so your social media channel, our social media channel, people can tap into so many people now for free, and I think there's a lot out there for people if they're ready and willing to take the action. There's people ready and willing to take them the rest of the way.
Yes, so excited. I didn't know that we were going to be in this place in my lifetime. So it's really exciting to see that new science is coming out every 6 weeks, every 3 weeks. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah. And I love that the more of it that comes out, the more it goes like this. Hi, you're a system. Can we give you tools that work your system? What if we didn't care what side of the line they were? What if we just cared that they worked? Would you play with them then?
Yeah. Results based.
You betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha. And that's really one of my missions. I'd love to shift consciousness on the planet. And in the ancient wisdom schools, it says that one person living this takes 90,000 people with them, has an impact in their energy field of 90,000 people. And if you do the math, I think, what does that come out to? 777,777 people, or 888 across the board. The point is, it's not an outrageous number to have this be a doable do. And
is that part of your mission where you see? Yeah,
absolutely.
Could you share where you're going?
Absolutely. I'm looking to further open GoQuantum University to have it be a repository, a modern repository, like the library at Alexandria, where people can come in and they can study and they can expand themselves. And if they want to do that in ancient techniques, great. If they would like to do that in modern designations, great. If they want to go explore, that's great also. And why I think it's so important now is Bruce Lipton speaks a lot to this, and so does Deepak Chopra. We are in the 5th time period of written history as human beings, where we have had one set of systems and ideas that crashes while another one comes up. Only the 5th time. And in those time periods where they cross, and that's right where it is now, one's going down and one's coming up, are these times of great chaos, but also great possibility and new ways of interacting with ourselves and the environment. And the system of seeing ourselves as a system, including our system and involvement with Mother Earth, is, because she'll be fine. We're the ones that have to worry.
Yeah.
In the end, I think is an exciting idea. So whether you're coming from traditional religion or spiritualities or science, it's now this place where, if we can come together as human beings, we've got an opportunity to create extraordinary things that we did not have even 10 years ago. So while it's messy, birth is though.
I've found quite an acceleration in the field, and the thinking, even 10 years is a short amount of time, but so much change actually has taken place. It's been astronomical how quickly it's taken place.
It is.
Yeah. And how much more, even when I used to, last year I went up to Sydney quite a bit to do sales trainings with a very high-end sales team. And when I first started to introduce a little bit of out there stuff, one out of the team was really open to it. And she literally said, "Can you do hypnosis with us next time?" And hypnosis isn't really out there, but this is sort of on the conservative side. By the third one-day training, when I would talk about the out there stuff, all ears, all eyes, They were keen and interested and listening to it and absorbing it, because I think it talks about, we feel it, but most people don't have a vocabulary to articulate it or a container to put it in. And I think the work you do, Kim, is it helps people with that container. And it helps people articulate what they're thinking and feeling, but they just don't have the way to communicate it to someone else. So if they can't communicate to someone else, then it's just a loop in their head and a feeling, and they don't actually have the skill or the vocabulary in order to verbalize it. So how do you bring those concepts into the business world where it gets accepted so quickly, and especially on the spiritual side? Because with the skill set of, let's say, NLP, it could be very conscious minded. Hey, here are some great language patterns that will help you be a better leader. Here are some great language patterns that will improve your communication and have more people buy from you. And they could go, "Oh, I get that." The spiritual side, and you touched on it before. Is it about filling up your gas, your petrol tank? Is that how you frame it to them?
Actually go up in a higher chunk than that.
Good. Okay.
So that it doesn't really matter what audience I'm speaking to. Mm-hmm. Although I will admit, in some of the more spiritual audiences, I get to use some vocabulary that I don't need to explain in other places, although I need to explain their neuroscience. I walk in and I basically say, in order for you to be effective to the degree that you want, growth is required. Are you willing to grow? Yeah. Are you willing to learn? And if you're willing to learn, then I'm going to give you things that are on both sides equally. So I don't care what you call it. I don't care if you come up with a new name for it. Let's lose the attachment and get into the skill set, because the skill sets have been proven to be some of the skill sets used by the most successful people in the world. Are you looking to be one of the most successful people in the world? Nice buy-in. Good. And then I just do what we do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And brilliant. Whether that's, the 6-part masterclass that those guys have on From Your Heart, why are you doing what you're doing? Or I'm giving the brain training by Sacred Geometry. That's also meditations for healing. We say, here's the science. At this point in time, and I'm going to encourage your peeps to challenge some stuff. At this point, if you haven't heard that your mind can do more than you think you can, you've been living under a rock. And I'm going to encourage you to come out from the rock. And I think a lot of people have their own limiting decisions about talking about it that have nothing to do with the thing itself. If you want to learn how to work with your biology and your possibility, and the same thing that people have been saying to us for thousands of years, and now we just have science to back it all, come on in. I mean, we can see the changes on a CAT scan.
Yes.
So at this point, what are we talking about?
What is holding you back is really
right.
You mentioned a QR code. What's the QR code?
We have, I sent you earlier a QR code, and if you put it in the description when this gets loaded up and pinned, and it's specific to you guys, so specific to just your viewers.
Amazing. So for our community?
For your community.
Awesome.
It will take them right to a landing page where they can download $1,150 worth of really cool material and resources for them.
Awesome.
And what we would love is we would love to please, connect, send me an email, connect with me on, Dr. Kim at Facebook or Insta, and just let us know how you love them, or, how they worked for you, or any questions you had. Like, we'd love to hear.
So a lot of what we've spoken about today is on the QR, on the landing page. They can gain more insights into this.
Absolutely. There's 3 things for them on the 6 secrets for entrepreneurs, and that are there. And the first is our ebook Mission Manifesto. That is the set of questions that I mandate anyone that I work with personally for coaching in business must answer these questions. And it also introduces, it's a different way of being questioned about why we do what we do. And it also introduces the hero's journey, that we are all on our own hero's journey. And you need to know where you're at so you can stay 2 levels above where your clients are at. The second thing are the videos of masterclasses where I gave some workshops about some of this material and the drivers that keep us in excellence for business. And the third is Transformations, Healing with Joy, which is our award-winning MP3, where I literally talk you through the imagination of the sacred geometries around you that create a different frequency and align your brain. And you have 2 healing meditations in there. And the purpose of it was to train initiates so they could keep their high frequency at lunch. So back in the day, it was a CD. And the goal was they could go out to the car and pop it in.
It was a tape before the CD.
And in 18 minutes, they could pop themselves into that awesome state for the rest of their day.
This is awesome.
And
thanks so much for this.
You're welcome. Truly, truly my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And where can people find you? They Google Dr. Kim Redman, they Google Creatrix.
If you Google Dr. Kim Redman, you'll get me. Pretty much.
And your website is
Creatrix, www.creatrix, like the Matrix, CREATRIX, GoQuantum.com. And you can hop on there and get on our newsletter list, and you can send us an email from there with any questions. You can find me on Messenger, on Dr. Kim Redman on Facebook. You can send me a DM on Insta,
Cool.
Dr. Kim.
And
on
anytime
LinkedIn,
there's a link between something in science and the metaphysical world, you let your audience know about that straight away.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we love to do is chat with people and just say, where are you at? Maybe invite them to our weekend.
What weekend is that?
The Designing Your Destiny weekend, and the one we did in January and the one we're doing in February 22nd and 23rd, online to boot. We're not even taking ticket money for. We're saying if you make a donation to the Red Cross or your local food bank, help us feed families or people in trouble, then you can come. And I only take 18 people.
So it's highly intimate.
Yeah, it's really intimate. And we take you through, there's a workbook, 6 secrets, 6 gifts that we give you. And we deep dive. I do this. And it's 16 hours with me.
That's incredible. So what are the dates? So the weekend, and the fact that you are basically, your receipt for your donation is your ticket to attend.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. And we don't care how much you're donating. We just say donate something.
Yes. So
donate
give back.
Something. And if you go to creatrixgoquantum.com, you will see Designing Your Destiny. And if you click that, there's the landing page. It'll tell you that. It'll tell you how to email Hannah with where you donated, and she'll give you the codes to register.
All right. I love that idea. I really, really
Thank
value
you.
those who, in essence, put their money where their mouth is in terms of giving back, and that is running a course for the investment of giving to someone else.
Yeah, we're doing what we can do.
Awesome.
And so are you guys. I just want to say thank you. You guys are so hard-based, and you have your focus in such an amazing place of service that I just want to say thank you to both of you, because it just makes me happy to get on and hang out and talk with you guys.
Absolutely.
The privilege is all ours, Kim. We've we love speaking with you. We've had the honor of interacting with a lot of your clients and your students, and they're incredible and amazing people as well. We honor the work that you're doing, and I love anybody that's bridging this gap and being a big part of normalizing this stuff for people to talk about and utilize, because I think it does human beings a huge disservice to only talk to one aspect of our being and to cut a whole nother one off. So thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will put the Design Your Destiny link in the comments of this on Facebook, and there's a QR code as well, which I'll put there. So take advantage of it. Get the goodies on the landing page with the QR code. It will change your life. So Dr. Kim Redman, huge thank you from Connekt Coaching for being here. I feel like we just scratched the surface of where we can go. We would love to have you back in the future.
Again.
Yes, no, 100%,
Sure.
100%. Love the bridging and what Cal said, normalizing it and having that acceptance, because it changes your life forever.
100%.
100%.
So we'll say goodbye for now. Kim, if you could stay on, I'll stop the recording
Absolutely.
and the view and the streaming. Thank you for viewing. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hi.
Hey guys, Kallum and Conor here from Connekt Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged Podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting. If you are a practitioner, a coach, or a trainer in the alternative therapy modality space, the Forever Client Matrix is something that we've modeled in the last 30 combined years, both Conor and my experience. And we've turned it into a 2-day intensive, and we want to give you a preview of that, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely.
We want to make the bar for them to enter into that program very, very low, and have them get incredible results.
I've sold about $40 million worth, and together we've sold about $100 million worth with our teams.
That's right. We believe that trust and reliability is the currency of the future. So if you want to turn every transaction into a transformational experience, if you want to turn every prospect into a forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.